within Freemasonry can hopefully promote kindness, act kind, be kind, etc., etc. I do believe that we in Freemasonry are in a privileged position to try to be able to help people and to try to be able to practice kindness. Perhaps we have more opportunities to do so than others because of being part of a lodge gives us access to resources, benevolence, brotherhood, connections that allows us to be kind. In the same way, I'm in a privileged position to be kind as it relates to my neighbor. I'm in a privileged position to be kind as it relates to my Masonic experiences. In the meantime, let's wait and see who joins. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let me know any thoughts on Freemasonry. And you can also do a super chat. Even 99 cents helps out big time. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Let me know what your thoughts are on Freemasonry. These 1 a.m. streams, 1 a.m. Eastern anyways, I don't actually have any topics per se. Rather, I just wait to see who joins and what they want to talk about, any questions they have on Freemasonry. And so, yeah, I've been a Freemason again since 2007. I do not know everything about Freemasonry. However, because I've been on it for 20 years and have spent my life trying to study it a little bit anyways, I at least have my experiences and my thoughts and my ideas, which I can share. If you are a Freemason, maybe there are things you want to talk about or ideas you have about the craft, which I'd love to hear. If you're not and you have questions, I will do my best to answer them. I can't make any promises that I'll be able to answer every question, but I will do my best. At least give you my perspective on things. And once again, please, please, please take a moment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let me know any thoughts on Freemasonry. Again, positive, negative, or neutral. And anything else you want to talk about as well is fine with me. I mean, like I said, I don't really pick any. I don't necessarily have any specific topics about Freemasonry for these 1 a.m. streams. Rather, it's just about waiting to see who joins and what they want to talk about. So please jump in the chat, say hello, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Just gonna wait and see. Ronald Vaz, hello. Bot, B-O-T. Man is appointed mortal sorrow. Bot, how's it going? Thank you for being here. Ronald Vaz, thank you for being here as well. How is your night going? Or your morning, or I don't know what time it is for you. It's 1 a.m. for me here in Eastern Standard Time here in Ontario. Very sorry. I wish I could read that. Let me see if I can't translate it. Let me know how the sound is coming through as well. If you guys can hear me well, see me well, etc., etc. Hello, Obani. Thank you for being here. I hope you're doing well. Let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral. I'd love to hear them. Busy-itis, Denali, as in you're busy? I don't know what that means. Thank you for being the first like. That is very much appreciated. How is it going for you? Denali, thank you for being here. Obani, thank you also for being here. I hope everybody is doing well. Anything you guys want to talk about? Any thoughts on Freemasonry? Please let me know. Neutral. So you're neutral on Freemasonry? Can I ask what that means. Hello, power. When you say neutral towards Freemasonry, um, like what some of your thoughts are on Freemasonry? Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Uh, it should not make a difference to my stream, so I don't answer that question. How's it going, Power XD, though? Thank you for being here. So, Ronald, you said neutral. What are your thoughts on Freemasonry just in general? Are you religious, scientific, or DJ 325? What is my worldview? I mean, I'd like to think of my worldview can best be described in philosophical terms as a Masonic worldview, which you can look at things like the Anderson Constitutions, Voltaire, Enlightenment era thinking is kind of a good guide to that. I believe in a supreme being, but I do not necessarily follow any particular religious belief. I suppose scientific would be the best approach to describe me. I think my philosophy in general is more in line with Enlightenment era philosophies, Voltaire, Diderot, Condorcet, stuff like that. DJ 325. I hope that made sense. Sarah V, welcome. Please hit like and subscribe. Thank you for being here. Freemasonry is not a religion, right? Freemasonry is not a religion. It's closer to, I mean, what it is a social club or a group, like any other club, but it's not a religious club. We have men and women, but men of all different faiths who are Freemasons. Um, the highest level, I mean, he's definitely having the most fun. That's a Shriner, which is a part of Freemasonry for sure. Don't really think about it in terms of highest levels, things like that. However, I would say that is the level that has the most fun, without question. Duke says, "Well, I'm just an icon, for the record. With a handsome face like this, how can I not be iconic?" Um, Eli Schuyler, please hit like and subscribe. DJ325, please hit like and subscribe. And let me know your thoughts on Freemasonry. The highest degree in Freemasonry, the highest level is the third degree. That's the level that matters the most. Beyond that, a 33rd is an honorific, without doubt. It's a demonstration of care for the craft, but it does not make you higher or of a higher level than a third degree. It's Master Mason or bust. Thank you, Sarah V. That's incredibly kind of you. If you want to support me and my voice on YouTube, do a 99-cent super chat. It would be greatly appreciated. Um, Hopefully, my face is handsome as well. Based on everything I've seen on YouTube, I have a very ugly face. At least that's what all the comments say. But I choose to think of this as a very handsome face. I'm not worried about it. They know where to find me. In fact, I'll see a lot of them tomorrow. There is no they in Freemasonry, right? That's kind of a myth. There's just Freemasons who have a lot of different ideas and opinions. Um, Order of the Eastern Star is for men and women. It's a Masonic group that is open to men um, as well as family members of Freemasons. Kind of. I mean, there is the Order of Women Freemasons, which would be closer to the like the female version of Freemasonry. Thank you. Um, Thank you, Lewitz. Actually, I've been training today. I've to be a boxer. I've trained professional wrestling. Well, Freemasonry is not a unit, right? There's obviously brotherhood and connection between Freemasons around the world. However, we are different jurisdictions. So the Ontario jurisdiction is under a different constitution and rules than the Texas jurisdiction, for example. I do not want to do an air siren. Well, you can think about the idea of Freemasonry as a unit in metaphorical terms, but in practical terms, there is no single Masonic governing body. There's jurisdictions. Um, and the jurisdictions have different rules. Um, Well, so if you're speaking of trans, my personal favorite, because again, because Freemasonry is jurisdictional, there are different rules within different jurisdictions. But my favorite policy on trans men joining Freemasonry came from the Grand Lodge of England in United Lodge of England, and I believe it was 2017, 2018, which said that if you are a trans man, you are welcomed into a Masonic lodge, no different than any other man, which is the appropriate way to deal with it, I think. So I think United Grand Lodge of England had it the best approach. However, there are different policies depending on which jurisdiction you're in. Um, Can-Am Wrestling School. I live in Mason County, so I don't know what that means. I live in a Mason County, which is based upon Freemasonry. Um, I mean, there are definitely small towns and counties and places which have been, you've had a greater number of Freemasons. Um, and so Freemasonry had more of an impact on the community, it was more relevant to the community. But it is not idolatry, right? Because within Freemasonry, we are not worshiping anything. We are first and foremost faithful to our own religious beliefs. Um, Nor is it satanic for that matter. I've never met a satanic Freemason. I had once an individual call me and express an interest in joining Freemasonry, and he said he was, his religious beliefs was the Church of Satan. However, after speaking with him and answering his questions about Freemasonry, he decided not to join because he felt that it was not in keeping with his beliefs. So take that for whatever it's worth, I suppose. I don't know what that is. What is Charvaka philosophy? Unfortunately, like I said, I don't know what it is. So we are not, despite what your friend and mine, Alex Jones, may say. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't really. We do not celebrate. I mean, I don't celebrate the devil, nor do any Masons I know celebrate the devil. I'm not sure what you mean by self-governing and the false god of self-governing. I'm not sure what that refers to. I mean, Freemasonry is a democratic organization, but saying that would be like saying, everybody who lives within a democracy celebrates the false god. Because all what a democracy is ultimately is the idea of self-governments. Even a republic, like the states, right? It's still democratically electing representatives. Um, so I'm not really sure what false. I mean, no Freemason is told to govern himself over, let's say, the government of a country in which he lives. So to follow the rules of the country, and also his deity and his understanding of the supreme being, because again, we people have their own religious beliefs. Um, well, I mean, Clark, I don't want to get into a philosophical debate or theological debate with you, but that seems very unlikely to me, what you say, because many things that exist within the country and the world, like, I guess I'm not sure to what you're referring. Like when you say, if it is not based on the one true living God, then by default, I mean, um, I don't understand what that means. What I would say is there are religious and non-religious things. Famously, right? Not a Christian myself, but Jesus had his famous quote: "Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, give unto God what is God's." Right? In response to the idea of having Caesar's image on a coin. The point is, there are many things that exist within the world that are not necessarily of a Christian faith. That doesn't mean it's negative, in my opinion. I don't really understand. Not everything can come from God, right? Lord Dunce, what are my beliefs? I mean, I believe in a supreme being. My supreme being would best be described as the rational order of the universe as expressed through math and science, such as Like these equations over here. Just a couple examples of it. Well, Freemasonry does not have its roots in paganism, Clark. Freemasonry has its roots in stonemason guilds of the 15th and 16th centuries. Initially, they were trade unions, right? They were operative stonemasons, men who built things out of stone. Cathedrals, churches, ironically enough, walls, fences, whatever it is, they formed and fashioned things out of stone. And then over time, these operative masons started to allow speculative masons, men who did not want to build things from stone but wanted to be part of a community group, into their lodges, and hence Freemasonry was formed. So it did not come from paganism; it came from trade unions, if anything. Um, right, but the roots are definitely not pagan, quote unquote. I mean, Freemasonry, when developing its kind of philosophies or its rituals, it borrowed from a lot of different things. It borrowed from Christianity, Judaism, it borrowed from Egyptian mysticism, it borrowed from Stoic philosophy, but primarily it borrowed from stone masonry because that is from whence we came. It's based in craftsmanship. I mean, you could join even if your dad wasn't a Freemason, DJ 325. You don't need to have a family connection to be a Freemason. Um, that is kind of one of those myths that exist. By the way, Clark Kent, DJ 325, your average person, thank you for your kind words. You can hit that like and subscribe button. Um, I do believe in a Big Bang. Well, I mean, I tend to think that our universe represents or is the result of a singular Big Bang. However, I believe the universe is probably infinite and there's probably multiple Big Bangs happening within different parts of the universe that we can't get to. And in some of those Big Bangs, it's desolate, and some there might be life. Who knows? But I believe in a Big Bang. But I believe in an infinite cosmological model. But again, that's my personal belief. Every Freemason will have their different views on it, which is one of the greatest strengths of Freemasonry. Mad Dog, hello. I'm not sure by whom when you say been recognized as a major influence. I mean, I'm not sure by whom. I've never heard that. Certainly, Freemasonry has influenced modern countries, different modern countries. Like it was very influential in the development of the Philippines. America, famously, 9 of the founding fathers were Freemasons. Canada, our first prime minister was a Freemason. The idea of it developing paganism, I've not really heard of that. Thank you. Well, so Freemasonry came before the Illuminati. Someone dead. I hope you're not too dead. I hope you can hit the like and subscribe button. Freemasonry, you can pick different dates for its founding. I tend to go with 1717. The Illuminati started in 1777 by an ex-Mason, actually, a guy called Adam Weishaupt, who did not like Freemasonry for a variety of reasons and decided to start his own group instead. The Illuminati really died out by the early 1900s, really. So, Clark Kent, I'm not sure from where you're getting your info. That's not been my experience, anyways. Um, I mean, having been a Mason for 20 years and attended over 1,000 events, I mean, I think definitely Freemasonry encourages. I mean, I don't even know necessarily what you mean by self-governance. Certainly, Freemasonry is a democratically based institution. So there is the idea that within Freemasonry, I can't just walk in and say I'm in charge. There's votes, there's elections. Leadership is granted based on a democratic process. But that's true of, like, that in the same way Americans believe in self-governance. They actually fought a whole war against Britain because they believed in self-governance. Canadians, like any country that is a democracy, believes in self-governance. Um, it doesn't teach that all morality or goodness comes from the self, in my experience, by any means. To the extent that it teaches anything on that, what it teaches is, there is this idea of a universal desire to be good and true, but each individual has his or her, but his own religious and spiritual beliefs, and those are to be respected, right? I cannot show any more or less respect to a Christian than to a Muslim or Jewish person in their beliefs. And that's because Freemasonry is a civic society. And a civic society, you must respect different beliefs. Well, the Illuminati started in 1777, right? Again, Adam Weishaupt started it. Now, whatever happened within the Garden of Eden, if you take it literally, I mean, I'm not a Christian myself. Um, you know, you can kind of argue those on theological terms, but the practical organization known as the Illuminati, which people refer to, started in 1777. Prodigals select red or blue. I'm not a big fan of that question because it's very inconsistent what that actually means. My Blue Lodge is Windsor Lodge 403, and I'm a member of four other Masonic lodges at the craft level or the blue level. I did join Scottish Rite as well. I'm 18th degree Scottish Rite member. However, you got to be really careful with red and blue. It has a lot of different terms. So I'm not a huge fan of that. Um, I mean, there's a metaphor. I wouldn't even use the term code, prodigal. I would use the term philosophy, right? There's a Masonic philosophy. In the same way that, like, I use this example all the time. If you consider a football player, right, you wouldn't describe playing football as having a moral code or a metaphorical code, but it definitely, there are certain philosophical ideas that exist within, the game of football that a football player will likely live by, right? He'll likely believe in teamwork. He'll likely believe in physical fitness. He'll likely believe in practice, sport, right? All of those things, you wouldn't describe them as a religion, but you would describe them as philosophical kind of understandings through which he lives his life. Freemasonry is the same thing. If you're a Freemason, you probably believe in history or have an interest in history. You probably believe in teamwork. You probably believe in the group being stronger than the individual. You probably have a belief in charity and caring for others, because that's kind of philosophical ideas that are part of the Masonic tradition. Um, okay. Um, Freemasonry is based on human, religious, emotional, intellectual. Well, Clark, I think you and I are just going to, um, I think you and I are just going to have to disagree a little bit, Clark. I still appreciate you being here very much. Um, I hope even if you disagree with me, you at least recognize I'm coming from a good place. So I've known many Christian Freemasons. I would say the majority of Freemasons I've met over the years have been Christians. Typically, what you find is whatever the dominant religious tradition is of a community, that will be the dominant religion found within a Masonic lodge. So, if the majority of people in your community are Christian, then the majority in the lodge will be Christian. If it's Muslim, it'll be Muslim, right? Whatever it might be. I've known many Christian Freemasons, though. I've even known a few Christian Masons who are also pastors. I've even known several Catholic Freemasons, despite what the Catholic Church may say. Um, well, I appreciate that, Prodigal Select. That's very kind of you. I do hope you hit that like and subscribe button. The point of this stream is to promote the ways Freemasonry was and is relevant to the communities in which it's located. Um, wow, Clark Kent is not a fan of anything. Normally, what you find is if somebody's not a fan of Freemasonry, they're a fan of something else, but not a fan of Freemasonry, nor of the Catholic Church, nor of Islam. Bit concerned you might be a bit of a hater, Clark Kent. I appreciate you being here, but there's got to be something you like, or some human institution you like. Am I good enough for heaven? I have no idea. Um, I have zero clue. Honestly, I think there's an immortal I think I have an immortal idea about me. I think all people do. That's kind of a Masonic idea, the idea of there's immortal quality of us. I'm not necessarily sure I believe in an afterlife in terms of heaven or hell. Um, I'm not 100% sure I believe in that. I think the immortal quality of us lives on beyond us, but what actually it is, I'm not sure. All religions are man-made, but Jesus is God-made. Well, I mean, religious belief, though, I mean, it's related to God or gods, obviously, right? I mean, I am not a reviler of anybody's religion. If you have a religious belief and you find that brings you peace and comfort and helps you live a moral life, then I'm not going to judge anyone's religious beliefs, right? Yeah, a lot of people have brought up that point recently. It seems to be kind of a relatively new philosophy, but a good one. This idea of we are the universe creating a memory of itself, right? Which is true in some ways. I mean, we know all of the elements created in stars are found within us. So, as much as parts of us are in stars, the stars are within us as well. Um, I have been to Mexico several times. I love Mexico. It's an incredible country. I am born in Canada, Winnipeg, Manitoba, and then currently live in Windsor, Ontario. My pops is from England, met a Canadian girl, and you know how that goes. Bobby, please hit like and subscribe. When all those British mothers out there, be very careful. Don't let your sons meet a Canadian girl because they end up moving to Canada and leaving you behind. Um, no, I mean there's nothing. I mean, I suppose maybe to a certain extent, I think maybe there's kind of this free Masonic philosophy of modesty a little bit, which I certainly don't follow. Maybe, but I mean, I know many Freemasons who talk about themselves online, talk about Freemasonry online, or who work online, social media posting. Um, Well, I mean, there's definitely elements in the stars, right? The stars are the furnaces of the universe. It's where elements outside of helium and hydrogen are created. It's where iron was created, carbon was created. Basically, anything outside of a couple of, hydrogen and helium, I think, are created within stars. Um, well, that's good, Clark. I could use all the help I could get. Welcome. If you're just joining us, thank you for being here. Please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe button. Let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry. And even consider doing a 99-cent super chat. The purpose of this stream is to talk about the ways that Freemasonry was and is relevant to the communities in which it is located. Um, Morality is human, but spirituality is divine. Fair enough, I think. I got my cat down here. Well, yeah, I mean, certainly within Freemasonry, there's this understanding that, you have to be joining of your own free will and accord. And part of that means we can't be running around telling people you have to join. And even for the longest time, there was this idea that you can't even talk to somebody about Freemasonry. But that's changed, obviously. Now we're comfortable talking to people about Freemasonry. But if you actually want to be a Freemason, you have to be the one to ask to join, right? Because joining, it has to be of your own free will and accord. Um, Welcome, Brother Courtney. I'm doing well. How are you doing? Thank you for being here. Um, so it's that typical kind of Masonic cliche to be one, ask one. If you want to be a Freemason, the first thing you have to do is find a Masonic lodge and approach them and ask them for more information. Joseph E., Freemasonry is not satanic, but thank you for being here nonetheless. Please hit like and subscribe. Like I said, Freemasonry, though, it is not satanic. It's not a religion at all. Well, I mean, for I think most things, a lot of things in life, there's definitely that idea where, if you want to you have to be willing to ask, right? I mean, Steve Jobs had a great quote about that where he said, like, the reason most people don't succeed is because they're too afraid to ask. Um, they're too afraid to get started. They're too afraid to ask. I kind of think that's a very accurate way to look at it, right? And that's why Freemasonry has done so well over the years because we're willing to ask, or people joining, by definition, are willing to ask. What about Hiram Abiff? He's a very important part of Masonic tradition and Masonic lore. Um, so I don't know why you would. I mean, I don't think personally Hiram Abiff ever actually existed. I mean, he's mentioned in two verses of the Bible. I can't remember the chapters. Not even Hiram Abiff, just Hiram is mentioned as the builder of King Solomon's temple. But I can't think now of which chapters he's mentioned in. But I don't think he was an individual. I think he's a composite of many individuals, right? It took 7 years to build King Solomon's temple, according to the Bible. Within that length of time, you're going to have multiple head builders, I would think. Captain Cake, please hit like, please hit subscribe. Um, it's okay. They're welcome on the stream. Joseph and Clark, even though they are incorrect, they're still welcome on the stream. I'm not a big fan of the term Bible thumper. I think it's a little bit too dismissive for my liking of religious beliefs. Thank you for hitting like, much appreciated. And Joseph, even though you may think Freemasonry is satanic, I hope you'll at least think my heart's in the right place, and that you'll hit the like and subscribe button. Well, I'm not lonely. I don't have any feet. I'm missing my legs, and I am neither satanic nor Jewish. So 0 for 3 on that one, for whatever it's worth. Freemasonry is we'll talk about the fraternal side, is for men who believe in a supreme being, who are over the correct age, in Ontario 21, in the States 18, and like I said, who believe in a supreme being. Scottish Rite, I'm a Scottish Rite Freemason, and I am not satanic. So you're 0 for 5. Very sorry, Joseph E. I think maybe you've been watching too many incorrect YouTube videos. JB, well, that's unkind. I try not to um, um, I try not to block people, but I think in that case I'm going to have to. JD is here. Welcome, JD. I'm happy that you're here. And I also hope while you're here, you'll hit the like, subscribe, and maybe consider doing a super chat. Who knows? Dude, it's easy to lie and deny, but people who have eyes can see. Well, I'm not sure what you're seeing, Joseph, but you're not seeing what I'm seeing. And as someone who's been a Freemason for 20 years, it seems like if there was anything to see as to what you're saying, I would have actually seen it at this point, for whatever it's worth. Which degree am I? Which degree do I need to be in order to see the truth? Because I've found whatever degree I say I'm at, or whatever degree I'm at, I should say, there's always a higher degree. Um, for the record, though, the highest degree within Freemasonry is the third degree. That's the Master Mason degree. There is no higher degree than that. There is a 33rd degree, as well as Scottish Rite, and as well as York Rite chapters. But it's not one of those situations where, despite what people think, a 33rd degree is like 11 times higher than a third degree. That's not how it works. Well, I care about Freemasonry, and I'm somebody. Um, sure, someone did. I mean, Freemasonry, very briefly, right? Freemasonry evolved and originated from stonemason guilds. There were, trade unions, stonemasons in the 17th, 16th centuries, men who built things out of stone, right? Shaped stone for human use. And um, what happened is over time, speculative masons, these were men who did not want to build things from stone, but wanted to join these guilds for the social aspect and the security aspect. When I say security, I mean, in the 15th, 16th centuries, there were no really social welfare programs. If you wanted to be insured, you could potentially have a social safety net. You needed to know a lot of people, have a lot of friends, or be part of a lot of groups. And stonemason guilds were one group you could be part of for a social safety net. So people could join. People started to join these operative lodges. They paid dues into them, but they did not learn to work with stone. And over time, the speculative masons grew. And they started to develop their own rituals as a way to create bonds of brotherhood amongst the membership and generations, and adopted certain modes of recognition in honor of their operative roots. So there you go. Paul Lloyd is quite unkind. Um, and so is Joseph E. Well, Jim is nice, at least. He gives free mustache rides, so that's something. No worries. I hope my explanation made sense. Um, and I hope everybody is doing well. Uncle Cracker is here. Thank you, Uncle Cracker, for being here also. How is your night/morning going? I don't know what time it is for you, but it is 1 a.m. for me. Well, I mean, I would be hesitant. Your truth does not seem congruent with what I've seen and experienced being a Mason for 20 years. Um, right? It's one of those situations where I could maybe understand the argument if I was a new to Freemasonry or had not been participating. But not only have I been a Mason for 20 years, but I've visited Masonic events, meetings, rituals across Canada, all across the United States, Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, the Philippines, and England. I've never seen any of the things you're suggesting, which makes me highly question from whence your sources come. Um, well, that is true. It doesn't have to be a god per se, right? To be a Freemason, you must believe in a supreme being. The nature of that supreme being is up to you. And that dates all the way back to the Anderson Constitutions of 1723, which, by the way, I think is one of Freemasonry's greatest strengths. But in the same way, it doesn't matter what God you believe in to become a Canadian or an American, right? I mean, Freemasonry is a civic or an engineer. Freemasonry is a civic institution. It's not a religious one. Um, the origins and rituals, well, they do not, Clark Kent. That is incorrect. Certainly, Freemasonry borrowed in the 18th and 19th centuries. It borrowed some ideas and philosophies from Egyptian mysticism and incorporated them into Masonic ritual. The reason being, at the time, Egyptology was huge in in England, especially in Victorian England. It was the time of, it was a time when you'd have a whole bunch of British people going to Egypt and robbing graves and robbing tombs and bringing stuff back for the museum. And so they just kind of, there's this huge love of like Egyptian, not even so much the mythology, but more the aesthetic of Egyptians, if that makes sense, right? People got really into like decorating their homes in Egyptian hieroglyphs and pyramids that you started to see that as early as the Enlightenment period, right? Where Enlightenment thinkers kind of fell in love with Egypt in the same way. Um, but I mean, again, it's one of many, right? It's not exclusive. The exclusive or the majority ownership when it comes to these ideas and Masonic rituals really is stonemasonry and turning stonemasonry practices into metaphorical lessons. Um, well, I never said I was the best that Freemasonry has to offer. I mean, I should be talking about Shaquille O'Neal. He'd be pretty great. Shaquille O'Neal is awesome. Um, but I would not describe myself as the best of anything. I hope, though, I'm able to express myself well. Beyond that, you can pass. Randall Carlson's a pretty great dude, and um, he's a really good communicator about what Freemasonry is. So, um, and yeah, paganism is such a broad term; it can refer to almost anything, right? Rome, Greek, Egyptian, Sumerian, Celtic, or Celtic. You know, it's one of those words that doesn't really mean anything. Well, why would I want to be a Chad? What's wrong with being a nerd? Um, what's with the hatred of nerds? Nerds are great. I would consider myself a nerd, not just about Freemasonry, but about a lot of different things. I'm a nerd for horror movies. I love horror movies. I'm a nerd for sports, professional wrestling. I actually train professional wrestling, and I'm a boxer, or training in boxing as well. Um, Well, I mean, I would think the best way to have research is to take part in these rituals. And I'm not saying I've taken part in every Masonic ritual because that would be impossible. There's just too many. But I've taken part in hundreds of Masonic rituals around the world, never seen anything satanic or demonic. So it's one of those things where I've read morals. I've not researched everything. I've read Morals and Dogma, read some Manly P. Hall stuff, read the old charges, never seen anything that would I would describe as demonic nor satanic. So I'm not really sure what additional research I would have to do. Um, hey, Shaquille O'Neal is awesome. There's a lot of, again, I'm not the best of Freemasonry by any means, but I am somebody who tries to do well for Freemasonry and for the world at large. Um, well, I've read them both. I'm not a huge fan of Albert Pike and Morals and Dogma. I think he's very over appreciated, overrated, especially by non-Masons. I once heard this quote: Masons know about Masonry by being a Mason. Non-Masons know about Masonry because of Albert Pike. He gets a lot of stuff wrong. And keep in mind, he was writing about Scottish Rite Freemasonry from a Southern jurisdiction perspective. He really had no impact on Freemasonry. Yeah, certainly the Craft Lodge in Canada. He had an impact on Scottish Rite in Canada. But keep in mind, there's also Northern jurisdiction. The point is, he's one dude who happened to be popular in the South, Alabama in particular. But you want to take what he wrote more as his personal philosophy and not as a Masonic philosophy. Um, I do not worship Lucifer the light bearer. Albert Pike may have, but just because he says it doesn't mean it's true for Freemasonry. Um, I've been thinking about practicing meditation. I don't really, but I've been thinking of trying it out, or at least I do practice breathing exercises, which you could argue is a type of meditation, I suppose. Al, Babek, Dennis, everybody here, Joseph, if you've not done so yet, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Consider doing a super chat. I hope everybody watching this is doing well. Um, well, we don't know for sure about that, Clark Kent. I mean, it may have happened. in which case that was Freemasons acting foolishly and stupidly. However, there's been many Christians who've acted foolishly as well. But it's not, we don't know for sure what happened, right? He also famously had a ton of debts with a ton of people. So there's some theories that he just escaped to Canada because he escaped from a debtor's prison first, right? He was in a debtor's prison because he owed a lot of people money. The implication is he was taken on a boat to a lake in New York, if I recall correctly, and cast overboard. But I don't even think his body was ever found. My suspicion is he may have actually escaped to Canada to get away from his debts. Um, why would I ban you, Josephine? That seems unkind. If you start insulting or being cruel, I will ban you, or like using racist language or anything. But if you don't have to support Freemasonry, you don't even have to support me. That doesn't mean I'm going to ban you. I think you're wrong and you're incorrect, but there's a lot of incorrect people out there in the world. If I banned them all, it'd be, you know, I'd have a lot of people banned. I have not, Dennis, but that's really cool. To whom am I virtue signaling? Geez, Joseph, I gotta be honest with you. I think you have a very broad definition of satanic, far broader than almost anything I've heard. I mean, police officers have designations, military have titles, general, corporal, lieutenant. Police officers, right, have ranks. Doctors have titles and ranks, resident, attending, resident. Um, Engineers have titles depending on what rank they are as an engineer. Different classes. On a ship, you have captains, you have servicemen, you have first officers. I mean, if having a title is satanic, my heavens, 99% of the world would be satanic at that point. That's pretty crazy. I mean, you keep telling me you were raised in Freemasonry. I don't know what that means. I mean, many places have significant Masonic presence because a lot of people of the town or community are Masons. But there's no like Masonic county. I guess I don't know what that means. Where were you raised, out of curiosity? Um, no, Joseph, but you do call the mayor his worship. And you do have, a master in the military, master corporals, for example. So master is a title, and worshipful, or his worship is a title that exists within many ranks outside of Freemasonry. Um, I've never heard the term merciful master, though. Um, well, we don't use the Bible to justify anything. We have volumes of the sacred law, which could be a Bible. But if the brother joining is, Muslim, for example, then it would be a Quran. Um, Dennis, you might not be seeing it. Depends what you've got your settings to. Basically, we have a couple people in the stream who are very much opposed to Freemasonry, view it as satanic, and I'm hoping to help explain to them why they are incorrect. But Merciful Master is never a title I've been using. I've never called anyone a Merciful Master, I'll call them a Worshipful Master. I'm a Worshipful Master right now. Well, I mean, I could argue that you've been indoctrinated in the same way, right? So you want to be careful with, throwing around the idea of indoctrination, because by that token, almost anybody with any beliefs could be, quote unquote, indoctrinated. Um, Nothing is exactly the same as anything else, right? Freemasonry is very unique. Um, but at the same time, it's not. Ultimately, it's dipping from the same well. It's fulfilling the same human desire to be part of a club that your knitting club is forming, right? Um, Bored, Bored. Welcome. Thank you for being here, Bored. I hope you're doing well. I hope you'll hit the like. I hope you're not too bored to not hit the like and subscribe button. Um, I would say the spirit of Freemasonry is a spirit of building or a spirit of belief that the world can be made better through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. But that's about the world. Again, I'm not Christian myself, but to use a Christian analogy, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, give unto God what is God's, right? Freemasonry is of the world. It's not a spiritual practice. Um, CMD1. I think I'm special. I'm handsome. Is that not good enough? The fact that I'm handsome? I don't have to be special to be handsome. Unless the Lord builds the house, those who labor, labor in vain. Well, then maybe I'm laboring in vain. Although you could argue that, in a sense, Freemasonry comes from the Supreme Being, as does everything, right? Not just Freemasonry. Well, every Freemason has his own agenda. I mean, Freemasonry doesn't have a single agenda, right? Hello, Crystal Lynn. One of the biggest misconceptions about Freemasonry is that there's this single global entity called Freemasonry that is governing Freemasons around the world, which is not the case, right? Freemasonry is jurisdictional, so there's not a single Masonic agenda. There's rather different Masonic jurisdictions. Like the Masonic agenda, quote unquote, in Ontario could be different than the Masonic agenda in, let's say, Texas, because it's different constitutions, different Grand Lodges. Now, they do share recognition and regularity, which indicates overlapping kind of common purposes or understandings of Freemasonry, but that's not the same thing as a worldwide agenda. Um, so there's a couple different explanations as to why an atheist could not join Freemasonry. First of all, though, the term atheist is in many cases interpreted so literally that atheists do often join Freemasonry. Like, for example, I suspect that, Clark and Joseph would consider me an atheist, but I'm a Freemason, and I would consider myself to believe in a supreme being. It's just defined a little bit more liberally. There's two reasons, though. To be a Freemason, as, in the same way to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, to testify in court, you need to take an obligation. You will take an obligation on a volume of the sacred law, which you can provide. It can be, for you, it can be a Quran, it can be a Torah, a Bible. I know First Nations brethren, Indigenous brethren who've used an eagle feather as a representation of their faith. If you don't believe in any type of supreme being, the theory is the obligation that you're taking or the oath you're taking will mean less to you, because by believing in a supreme being and taking an obligation on something that represent that supreme being, it will speak more to your conscience, more to your heart, and you'll be less likely to break that oath. The other reason is tradition and history, right? We in Freemasonry do believe in tradition. We are 300 and something years old. And as a consequence, throughout all of history, there was this tradition that you had to believe in a supreme being, not in a particular religious belief, but in a supreme being. And so that's maintained ever since. Joe Rogan likes cheeseburgers. Good for you. Um, yeah, many communist nations have had Freemasonry over the years, although generally speaking, within communist countries, it is less kind of, it tends to be a little bit more looked down upon, but, there have been many communist countries that have had Freemasonry, sometimes practiced, sometimes existing in the open, sometimes more underground. Um, um, Board, what about agnostics? Again, the term, belief in a supreme being can be so liberally understood that what I always suggest is people will ask me, I would say, I can't join because I'm agnostic, I'm atheist. My answer is always, go and talk to your Masonic Lodge, explain what you believe or what you don't believe, and let them decide. Um, well, that's an interesting way to put it, Clark. I'm not sure I would describe it in the same way. Like, I grew up with Freemasonry. I still don't know what it means when you say grew up in a Masonic county. Like, I can understand growing up in a Masonic family, which I did. My dad was a Freemason, both my grandfathers were. I went to a lot of lodge Christmas parties and special events, but I don't know if I would say Freemasonry felt quote unquote natural to me. I'd say more that Freemasonry felt important to me or relevant to me or something that mattered to me, if that makes any sense. Crystal, can I ask about the Order of Eastern Star? Sure. I mean, I think you asked above what lodges I'm a member of. I'm a member of 5 Masonic lodges, 3 in Ontario, 1 in Israel, 1 in Texas. When you ask what Eastern Star is a Masonic body, Masonic appendant body. It's open to men and it's open to women. Traditionally, they had to have some type of familiar relationship to Masons. So they had to have a father, a husband, a son, or a brother who was a Freemason. But that has been relaxed in recent years. I forget the date when it started. I think I was started 1888. I could be wrong though. Let me double check. 1850. So I was off by 30 years. But it was a way to basically welcome, female family members into Freemasonry. Dark Defender, I will have a wonderful day. I will have more of a wonderful day if you hit that like and subscribe button. Why is an East? I don't know what is wrong with an Israeli lodge. I don't know what Eastern Lodge means. Texas isn't an Eastern Lodge. 3 in Canada, 1 in Texas, 1 in Israel. But I'm very proud to be a part of a lodge in Israel. Um, I mean, they can, not as a rule. There are some Masons who will study genealogy because they have a lot of Masonic family members and will want to get a genealogical record of that. But I mean, it depends if you're interested in it. Um, well, I mean, I am an 18th degree Scottish Rite, but the degree that matters is the 3rd degree, right? That's the most important degree within Freemasonry. That means you're a Master Mason, and that means you can join appendant bodies, become an officer, become a master. Um, in terms of achieving the next level, quote unquote, Freemasonry is progressive. If you want to move from one level to the next, there's usually almost like a quiz. It's called approving. You have to be able to answer questions about Freemasonry, about the rank or the level you're at, and demonstrate sufficient knowledge and skill to move on to the next one. It's meant to kind of mirror operative stonemasonry, where operative stonemasonry you joined as an apprentice, and then to advance where you could actually earn a living as a stonemason, you had to pass tests and demonstrate proficiencies therein. It's basically the same idea. Um, I hope, Crystal, that you'll hit like and subscribe if you're not done so. I mean, I don't know if anybody knows what he said on his deathbed. He wrote Morals and Dogma, where he kind of implies that. I wouldn't even say implies that, says it. But Albert Pike was just one dude, and you have to take what he said with a pretty big grain of salt. There's a lot of stuff that he said that I like or liked, but there's a lot of stuff he said that was incorrect as well. He is one guy out of Alabama, published Morals and Dogma with the Southern jurisdiction of Scottish Rite. It's a bit like me, right? Just because what I say here, again, you don't necessarily have to. You should take it with a grain of salt, right? Everything that is said, you should take with a certain grain of salt. Um, Again, I don't know what Mason County is. It in Washington State, West Virginia, Michigan? Like, there's a lot of Mason counties, but that doesn't mean it's Masonic. Mason is a very common surname, right? It doesn't mean it's Freemason necessarily. I mean, well, I'm what's it called? An affiliate member, right? So I've never actually been to Israel. I've never visited the lodge in person. But when you're a Freemason in one location, what that means is so long as it's recognized jurisdiction, you can apply to be a member in another location, right? And so long as it's recognized, right? Freemasonry in Texas is recognized in Ontario, and Freemasonry in Israel is recognized. So I can become affiliate members of those lodges. It was really a way for me to support those lodges. The one in Israel, because their Grand Lodge building had been bombed a couple of times, and I wanted to show support for the Brethren. And in Texas, I'm a member of Tranquility Lodge number 50. Sorry, no, Tranquility Lodge number 2000, excuse me. Um, because it's a lodge based on Buzz Aldrin, who landed on the moon. We are not the same thing. There are many Jewish individuals who are Freemasons. There's also many Muslim, Catholic, Christian, Wiccan, Indigenous, right? There's many Freemasons who are Jewish and many who are not. I would say the majority of Freemasons are Christian, as a general rule, but that's not a requirement. And in a country like Morocco, the majority would be Muslim, right? In a Muslim majority country. Um, no, I mean, I use the term Freemason and Mason interchangeably. Um, the origin of the term Freemason is actually really fascinating. Because initially it was just Mason, and Mason referred to stonemason and someone who built things out of stone. In the term Freemason, it came from one of two possibilities, and there's debates as to where it came from. On the one possibility, the term Freemason may have came from the idea of being free to travel and collect wages around the world, right? So the basic idea is once you became sufficiently skilled as a Mason, the reason you wanted to do so is because you wanted to travel around the world and collect wages at different job sites. So you were free to travel from job site to job site. When you were an apprentice, you had to remain with the master builder who was teaching you how to be a stonemason. The other theory is the term Freemason came from a certain type of limestone, which was called freestone. It was basically, it formed in such a way that you could actually just pull it from the side of deposits. You didn't have to like chip it out, you could just pull it out. It was super brittle and hard to work with. So Freemasons were men who worked with that particular type of freestone in order to, they were the only ones who could work with it, or they were the most skilled Masons, basically. Having said all that, it's one of those things where people don't know for sure, but in 2025, the term Mason and Freemason, I use it interchangeably. Um, well, I'm not American, so I'm not undermining anybody, but I would say it's not that Freemasons undermined anything. Rather, Freemasons are part of historically, the American government. Not a big part of it by any means, but 9 of the founding fathers were Freemasons: George Washington, Ben Franklin, Paul Revere. The last undisputed Masonic president was Gerald Ford. There is debates as to whether Joe Biden is or is not a Mason. I personally think he is. He became a Mason on the last day of office through Prince Hall, but there's debates. Well, I mean, some do, some don't. What type of lessons? Right. I think we in Freemasonry should be better about doing public outreach and teaching people about Freemasonry and our lodges. But I mean, Freemasonry is a volunteer organization. So if you're working a full-time job, you got a family, you're probably not going to have time to put on public classes as well about your craft, right? But there's many Masonic lodges doing this work, and many Masons who have their own podcasts. Um, well, I'm no fan of Nick Fuentes, I can tell you that. I don't think he knows me, though. He's got millions of followers. I've got not quite millions of followers. Having said that, you can help me by becoming a subscriber, hitting the like button, and doing a super chat. Um, we'll see. I don't plan to repent. We'll see what happens, I guess. No, not a big fan myself. But hey, I'm happy he sends me his regards. I'm surprised he knows about me. Um, well, I mean, oh yeah, I mean, Freemasons have a ton of websites. Just make sure you're following legitimate ones. Actually, Crystal, if you're interested, and it's up to you, I wrote an article on Medium, and I listed a whole bunch of links through which you can sign up for free newsletters, all of which provide Masonic info. And for many of them, you don't need to be a Mason to subscribe to them. Grand Lodge of Idaho, Grand Lodge of Lodge of Somerset, Masonic Charitable Foundation, Ontario Mason Magazine. If you send me an email at info@squareandcompass.ca, um, I'm happy to send you a link with that story. It's on Medium, and you can get all the information you would want about Freemasonry, its history, its origins, what it's like in 2025. Completely up to you. But I would suggest, because the one thing I'll say is there's a ton of legitimate sources and great sources on the internet. UGLE is a great website, but there's a lot of information about Freemasonry around the world. Los Angeles has some great resources. So yeah, so check those out if you're interested. Um, I got a great forehead. I would love it if you hit the like and subscribe button. That would be very kind. I'm one subscriber away from 2,830. Ryan Messenger, also please hit like and subscribe. Thank you for being here. Any thoughts on Freemasonry? Please let me know. I hope I've been managing to describe things well for you. But there are a ton of great resources out there. Thank you, Sam. That's very kind of you. Oh, so sorry, Crystal. When it comes to outside links, YouTube tends to be pretty. YouTube usually doesn't let you post them, so I don't think YouTube's going to let that through. Having said that, what you can do, Crystal, is you can put that link as a comment under one of my videos or a short so people can find it, and you can also, like I said, shoot me off an email. I'll send you the links because Grand Lodge of England, United Grand Lodge of England, UGLE is great, but it's not, it's one of many great resources for non-Masons. Why should somebody join? Asks North Star. And Ryan, your grandfather's a Freemason? Awesome. My grandfather's a Freemason. Both of them were, as was my dad. Someone dead. What is the most common misconception about Freemasonry? We've seen a few misconceptions in this stream, but 100% the biggest misconception about Freemasonry is this idea that there's a global Masonic governance body or global Masonic agenda, which is simply not the case, right? Freemasonry is jurisdictional. There's different rules in different jurisdictions. Why should people join? Honestly, North Star, I can't answer that question. People need to be able to answer it for themselves. I think ultimately you should join Freemasonry out of a spirit of service and a desire to try to build a better world, metaphorically, through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. Some may want to join because they have a family connection. Some may want to join because they're new to a community and want to make some friends. Some may join because they love history. I personally think ultimately the reason to join is out of a spirit of service and brotherhood. But that's my opinion on it, for whatever it's worth. But everybody needs to decide for themselves, right? What the reason is for wanting to join. Eastern Star is an excellent organization. There's also Order of Women Freemasons as well, Crystal. But Order of Eastern Star is a great organization, and a wonderful part of the Masonic family. Well, I mean, I would say there are reasons to not join. Like there are bad reasons to join Freemasonry. I would say the most obvious bad reason to join Freemasonry is out of a desire to get rich or famous or powerful. First of all, because Freemasonry will not make you rich or powerful. So right off the bat, you're going to be disappointed. But also, I would say joining out of a desire to receive something and get something is more of a negative reason to join. Joining out of a desire for service or connection or community is more positive reasons. So there are definitely bad reasons to be a Freemason, but I think at the end of the day, everybody has to decide for themselves why they want to join. And then it's up to the lodge and them to determine if those are good reasons. Um, Alba Beck says UFOs. Well, Clark and Joseph, if nothing else, I'm happy that this stream brought the two of you together because you seem to have very similar views, though I would disagree with those quite strongly. Um, and Clark, in fairness, it's always possible that you might be deceived as well, right? You want to be very hesitant. I'm not saying you are about everything, but I think you may be deceived about Freemasonry a little bit. Um, well, what if you want to join the military, right? That might not be for the glory of God. That might be joining because you want to support your country or playing football. I mean, I would find it strange if every motive for everything that everyone does starts and ends with you, you know, getting a job, right? Presumably, your motive for getting a job is to earn money. Like there are a lot of different motives for joining things, right? Um, Again, I still don't know what you mean by raised in Freemasonry. You keep saying that, but does it mean it doesn't mean your dad was a Freemason? Does it mean your neighbors were a Freemason? Like, I don't understand what it means to be. I mean, I was raised in Freemasonry, I guess, in the sense that my dad was a Freemason, but that's not, I mean, I don't know what raised in Freemasonry means necessarily. In the Bible, I believe in Genesis, it talks about, well, I mean, I'm not sure about that. Um, like, you know, the term lodge, Masonic lodge, actually comes from the word Lud, Lod, and it actually refers to tents that operative masons or stonemasons would set up next to job sites, and it's where they would have refreshment and store their tools. So if you were working on building something, let's say a pyramid, next to it you would have a tent set up, and under the tent you would you'd have refreshment and take your breaks, and you'd store your tools and equipment there. And that was called a lud, and eventually that became a Masonic lodge. Um, so that's kind of where that term came from, interestingly enough. After you're born again, the Holy Spirit, every motive, everything you do. Well, Clark, it sounds like you found, your purpose in life, which is to do things for the glory of God, and that's awesome. Good for you. I mean, well, I mean, I have no clue. Obviously, if I don't think anybody can know that. I mean, I've been lied to through in my life, but that's part of human beings can, human beings lie sometimes, unfortunately. That's human nature, right? I'm not going to say that I'm perfect either. I've lied to people, sometimes for good motives, sometimes for not good motives, but I'm certainly not perfect. And no Freemason is, but hopefully through Masonic philosophies, we try to be better. And we try to live a more honest life. I think the philosophical understandings of Freemasonry, if you follow them, will encourage you to live an honest life or be honest with your brothers. But Freemasons are imperfect people, as we all are. Um, I'm trying to be perfect. I don't think I'm succeeding all the time, but I try to be perfect, right? There's one of the expressions I've always really loved is comes from, I forget where it comes from, but um, it was, God, I do not always know what the right thing is, but the fact that I try to do the right thing, I hope pleases you. Um, and I've always really liked that as a philosophy or as an idea. I'm not sure to what you're referring there. Sorry, Crystal. I mean, Holy of Holies, that makes me think more of a tabernacle type of thing. We wouldn't really refer to Holy of Holies within Freemasonry. Again, that's much more of a religious idea. Um, so I'm not quite sure to what you're referring. Hello, Never Knows Best. Thank you for being here as always. Um, yeah, but the moon is still pretty great on its own. Um, so each lodge has its own governing authority, but then it's under the jurisdiction of its Grand Lodge. So in Ontario, we're under the jurisdiction of a Grand Lodge within Ontario, right? In Texas, Texas. In Israel, it's the Grand Lodge of Israel. So every lodge will be under the jurisdiction of a Grand Lodge, which is usually in the States, it's every state has its own Grand Lodge. Every province in Canada has its own. In Europe, it tends to be more by country. Um, I like to think I have faith. Clark Kent might not be the same type of faith as you have, but that's okay. Uh, Sorry, Clark. They're not gonna let you say that on YouTube. I mean, I've disliked many people. Doesn't mean I don't respect them, right? You can dislike somebody and still respect them, just so people understand what that means. I think sometimes people get the idea of liking somebody and disrespecting somebody confused. Um, See, I feel like what you're trying to do here, Clark, and I appreciate being here, because I've seen this before. You're trying to convince me that I've sinned, which I already think I've sinned, and then you're trying to convince me that because of those sins, I will end up, um, in hell unless I repent. I'm not sure I believe in hell or necessarily in heaven per se. I'm not necessarily sure I believe in those things. So I'm not saying I should, I'm proud of the mistakes I've made, but those mistakes do not make me afraid of punishment, some type of eternal punishment. So you're kind of presupposing the argument there, Clark. You're assuming I believe in the premise of your argument, which is I'm destined for punishment in the afterlife, and I don't believe that for any of the things I've done. Um, I mean, I don't know if I'd say that. It's more that I don't necessarily believe in the same type of God you believe in, right? Which is not the same as having a low view of him. Um, well, we do have things to lose, though, Dennis. I mean, I would disagree with that as a philosophy. We have many things to lose by acting in a manner that could be described as bad, right? Causing someone else pain ultimately will cause harm to ourselves, right? That's our nature is we can understand that and recognize that. It does me no good to see my neighbor in pain. It does me no good to see somebody down the street in pain. It does me no good to see anybody suffering because ultimately, the extent to which they suffer will impact my ability to, have not just my ability, but my family's ability, my children's ability, if I had children. It does me no, it would be incredibly short-sighted to have an attitude of, right, because there's no benefit in the afterlife, I don't need to worry about doing good here on earth. That'd be very short-sighted from both a human perspective and the ability for me to continue the human race, which I'd like to. I'd like to see humans continue on this planet for millions of years. Every time somebody suffers or is harmed or is hurt, that impacts and limits and mitigates that ability. Um, Well, I mean, I've never heard like when I hear Holy of Holies, I'm not necessarily sure what that refers to. When I hear that, I tend to think of either King Solomon's Temple or a tabernacle, which, I mean, Masonic rituals do borrow from a lot of different kind of traditions, including Christianity. King Solomon's a very important figure in Freemasonry. I mean, there's a lot of different important figures though. King Solomon's one of many, but um, I guess I'm not sure why, like entering into a lodge room, let's say, which I've never heard referred to as Holy of Holies, but why entering into that would affect you at all. I mean, it also could be a clandestine lodge. The point is, I don't really hear that term within Freemasonry in any regular way. I am Groot. Are you a subscriber? Thank you, Oblivious. I appreciate you being here very much. God bless all of my subscribers and all the people with the like button. Welcome, Captain Blackbird. Thank you for being here as always. I will be ending this stream soon because it's 2 in the morning and I got to get to sleep at some point. I do appreciate everybody being here. I hope I managed to explain things well. If I haven't, it's my fault and I'll work on being better. I'm doing well. How's it going with you, Captain Blackbird? Superman was a Freemason, maybe. We're not sure. Um, but there was a clip in a part of a Superman comic book where they mentioned um, I'm trying to think what they said again or how they put it. They said um, oh what the he was flying away and somebody on the comic book said you know may the great architect of the universe protect you, and that, or may the great architect protect you, which great architect is a Masonic term. So the implication is Superman is a Freemason. We know for sure Captain America and Bucky were Freemasons. You're welcome, Crystal. I do these streams at 1 p.m. as well. I'll be back on 1 p.m. tomorrow. Um, and anybody watching this, I hope you will not forget. Um, I hope you will not forget to consider doing a super chat. 99 cents helps the channel. Um, that is true, Albabeck. Why? That's true. Superman's very busy. Here's a question: if Superman were to knock on your door and ask to join the lodge, would you let him? I would assume yes. I would hope yes. I'd be terrified of making Superman angry. But supposedly Batman was a Mason, Captain America, Bucky Barnes, and Superman were all Freemasons. Yes, but Dennis will do it at night when it's cold. So don't worry, we're not going to burn. We're not going to burn up because we're going to do it at night. So we'll be fine. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. As always, check me out regularly. Hit that notification bell. That way, you'll know when I'm ever doing anything. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Have a good night. Even you, Clark, despite your views on Freemasonry.